Kevin walk us through a few slides on his manual on the M&E guide on youth livelihood interventions, and he will explain to us how to use this guide and what are the key messages that come out of this guide. He is currently working for the Social Protection and Labor Unit at the World Bank, where he has been since 2009, working earlier on with the Children and Youth Unit. His recent work focuses on youth employment and youth-focused interventions. He has a lot of experience working in the field, a lot on Latin America, and you can find more about his bio online. So let me give now the floor to Kevin, and I would just like to remind you to please ask all the clarification questions needed during the presentation, and then please interact as much as possible at the end of his presentation as well. Kevin?
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can see my screen, so I'll just trust it. And yeah, what I will do is to run through a few slides to give you a sense of maybe some of the key messages that come out of our manual or toolkit, however you want to call it. Obviously, I can't do it full justice in a few minutes, and the easiest is probably that at some point you have a look, if you haven't done so, and skim through. But I will just walk you through a little bit of the structure and some of the key messages, and to put sort of everyone on the same page. And then I think the most useful will really be to have half an hour at the end where we can just discuss and really open it up for some questions, so we can really try to answer some of your very concrete concerns or questions or whatever it is. But what would be useful, just to start, is to get a sense maybe of what everyone's experience with evaluation is. And so I think you have another poll to just very quickly see what your prior experience is, because that will give me a sense as to how advanced or not advanced, also maybe, or how familiar with some of the concepts you may already be, and whether I should go through faster through some things than through others. So maybe we can pull up the poll again. So let me, I think for me it's a bit small, the results. What do we have? Maybe Sylvia, can you read the results?
Yeah. So 0% answered no experience, just curious. 25% answered my project organization has been evaluated.
Okay.
40% answers I have provided support to an evaluation.
Okay.
5% I have commissioned an evaluation, and 30% I have designed and or have conducted an evaluation.
Okay, so thank you very much. So that you know, suggests we have a well mixed, but also a somewhat experienced audience. So I at least gives me some confidence in some of the very basics I think have to be covered, and that really probably some of the key questions we can leave for the end. Some of the things I may present then maybe are well known and very familiar to some of you, but I'll just walk through them anyways just to make sure everyone is on the same page, and then we can leave the concrete things for the end. So let me just start in giving you a little bit of a background on how this started, and let me just see whether the slides actually move on. Okay, so why did we do the entire exercise about putting this guide together? And it was really a recognition to say that there is a very large number of programs, organizations out there doing interesting work, but from our interactions, we found that it was really for many a struggle to address monitoring and evaluation in a way that was satisfying to them. And I think one of the key issues maybe that there is that any monitoring evaluations decision have to be taken by really programming people, but who do not naturally have, let's say, a training or background in evaluation. And that creates an issue because those who need to take the decisions do not feel very comfortable about the type of decisions they may need to take, and what type of maybe evaluation experts they would need to hire, etc. And so it is very important that even when you are a project manager, project coordinator, or so, that you have the basic knowledge, but really a wealth and an overwhelming amount of information out there that one sometimes has difficulty really condensing through, and certainly program managers don't have the time to do a whole review. And so what we try to do is really come up with something short that brings it all together. The other element of that is that there's an increasing demand for what we call impact evaluations, and that's something I think new to many, and that's where a lot of sort of language and controversy sometimes comes in between evaluators and program managers, etc., and where we hope that maybe some sort of facilitating some of that discussion and bringing it together in one place would help colleagues in the youth livelihood field to really better address that. And of course, the underlying concept of that being that there is still a lot we need to learn on youth employment programs, and as a result, monitoring and evaluation really being important, and being important that many organizations and people can use it in the way they want to. So this is a little bit of the background, and so what we try to come up is this guide that is focused on youth livelihood, so to really recognize that practitioners working in the youth employment area really also want something that they can better relate to. And it's written for practitioners, not evaluation experts, initial knowledge that sort of everyone wants to know. We also recognize, and in a way it is reflected in your experience, prior experience, that there's a lot of heterogeneity in experience and knowledge on M&E. Some people need to learn more basic things, and others want to move on with more sophisticated and scientific methods. And we still wanted to support everyone, so we didn't want to exclude everyone. So we made it modular so that you, as a user, you can choose the part of the guide that is most relevant to your own needs, when the rest is already well known, and so you don't have to read the entire thing. Everything is basically independently usable. And we try to freshen it up with real-life examples of youth employment programs, tips, and some very actionable, concrete resources that may help you to actually move forward with some of the work you're planning to do. So the way it is organized is basically in two parts. The first is a part of what most of you will already be familiar with. It's reminding us about why we care, and really the basics of how this is linked to project design, the basics of monitoring, and really to decide how to maybe choose a specific evaluation method. So this is the first part, and these are concepts that many of you will be familiar with. The second part is basically to acknowledge this very strong and increasing interest in questions around impact evaluations, and I will go a little bit into more detail later. Recognizing that this is something many people want to know now, and so we basically try to address it in explaining some of the methods and the process that is involved when an organization decides to go for an impact evaluation. And so across the entire book, we provide some basic concepts, but then link this with practical examples, tips, online resources, key readings, etc. So to try to make this useful, but also for follow-up if you want to know more for everyone. So let me just, because I can't obviously run through the entire thing, let me just try to maybe highlight a few key messages that that hopefully will resonate with you. And I think the first one is as to why do we care in the first place, is to remind us that while many program managers certainly perceive that monitoring evaluation is more like a reporting back to donors, and so of an accountability exercise. If you look on the slide, so it's like many people are in the sort of the square number 3. It's really for legitimacy purposes, reporting to donors, and they don't necessarily perceive it as useful to themselves. Our opinion is that and through the different tools that are available, that really the main value added is really much more on the project side, and it's very much can benefit a particular project organization through learning. And this is, I think, something very important, that if you do it well, if you are able to on your project and learn what is going well, what is not going well, then you can really use this as a tool for project management, but also on a broader level to generate knowledge that we still need very, very strongly on the youth livelihood fields to know what works and what doesn't. And I think it's also, and that's maybe not always recognized, but if this works well, if monitoring and evaluation is done well, it is an incredible tool to really improve the credibility and also, frankly, financial sustainability of an organization. I remember an example from colleagues in Peru who were one of the first to do a good evaluation of their youth entrepreneurship program. And since they were the first, and since there was nothing really other out there that would tell people, well, we have really been able to show that our program works, their approach was in very strong demand, and a lot of funders got interested. And I think that's something also important to recognize, that if we are able to do very good monitoring and evaluation, it really reflects on the credibility of our organizations and projects. And so, in addition to the learning, so it's really, really, really way beyond the just reporting to donors if it's done well. The next key message, and maybe that is, I mean, it may sound basic, but I think sometimes people are afraid in the more recent discussions about evaluations that some of the core concepts maybe are not relevant. So our at least the authors here very strongly believe that the basics for every also more sophisticated evaluation is really good monitoring. So a lot of what your organizations probably already do is and remains and will remain absolutely crucial for everything else. So monitoring really being the basis for all other type of work, and that involves then some the common tools that you most likely know, and develop results chains where you lay out your theory of change, and then really putting this together in terms of for your desired objectives across the different activities and outputs and outcomes, to really define indicators, define what data collection method you want, whether this is a questionnaire or focus group, etc., defining who's responsible for it. So those things that you're already doing, they are absolutely crucial also for as a basis for more enhanced and scientific evaluation. Something we want to make very clear, that it's not about a zero-sum game where new evaluation methods and approaches come in and so the old stuff is not relevant, but to really say monitoring is the basis for everything else. And every project, no matter how small, should really do that well. The next key message, and this is maybe one where that brings a lot of the discussion together. Sometimes from the discussions we've had, there is a lot of discomfort and about supposedly that some evaluation methods are better than others. And I think this is where a lot of discussion comes in, there's a lot of where controversy comes in, and a lot of, yeah, really people disagreeing, some people saying, well, you really need some impact evaluations to be credible, other people saying, really, that doesn't capture everything, other people are equally valid. And I think the more pragmatic way to approach it, at least what we think is the best, is to really start with what a project or an organization wants to learn. And based on what you want to learn, whether this is really you know, what's going on in the project, or whether this is what has been, whether the project has been implemented as intended, or whether it is more an attribution question, that those original questions, they really need to drive the types of evaluation tools you choose, and not the other way around. And so all the different evaluation tools out there